They chose her side when my husband's mistress walked into my wedding reception like she owned the place. My own family, my best friends, they all turned their backs on me that day. Now they're all lined up at my door, begging. And honey, karma didn't just come back, she came back with receipts. If you've ever been betrayed by the people you trusted most, stay with me. This story will remind you why you should never let anyone dim your light. And before we start, hit that subscribe button, because by the end of this, you're gonna want to hear every story I tell. Now let me take you back to the day my whole world fell apart. June 15th, 3 years ago. The most beautiful day of my life was supposed to be happening. I'm talking about a wedding that took 18 months to plan, white roses everywhere, a live band that cost more than some people's cars, 200 guests in their finest, watching me marry the man I thought was my forever. My name is Monique, and that day I was 28 years old, standing in a custom dress that made me feel like royalty, about to promise my life to Trevor Williams. Everything was perfect, and I mean everything. The ceremony went off without a hitch. My daddy walked me down that aisle with tears in his eyes, and when Trevor took my hand, I swear I felt like the luckiest woman alive. We said our vows, we kissed, everyone cheered. The reception was in full swing, and I remember thinking, this is it. This is my happily ever after. Then she walked in. Her name was Brianna. I'd never seen this woman before in my life, but she strutted into my reception hall wearing a tight red dress and heels that clicked on that marble floor like gunshots. The music was playing, people were dancing, and suddenly everyone just stopped. All eyes turned to her. And this woman, she walked straight up to the head table where Trevor and I were sitting, looked me dead in my face, and said the words that would change my entire life. I'm pregnant with your husband's baby, and he's been with me for the last 8 months. The room went silent. I mean, you could hear a pin drop. My heart was pounding so loud I thought everyone could hear it. I looked at Trevor, waiting for him to tell her she was crazy, to call security, to do something. But the look on his face told me everything I needed to know. Guilt. Pure guilt. He couldn't even look at me. I stood up, my legs shaking so bad I could barely stand. I opened my mouth to speak, but before I could say anything, my mother, my own mother, grabbed my arm and pulled me aside. And you know what she said to me? She said, "Monique, don't make a scene. Let's handle this quietly. Think about what people will say." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This woman just crashed my wedding, announced she's carrying my husband's child, and my mama is worried about what people will say? But it got worse. My sister Candace came over, and I thought, finally, someone's gonna be on my side. But instead, she looked at me with this pitying expression and said, "Maybe you should hear her out. I mean, Trevor has needs. Maybe y'all can work out some kind of arrangement." An arrangement. At my wedding reception. While this mistress stood there with a smirk on her face. My best friend Denise, the girl I'd known since we were 6 years old, the one who helped me pick out that dress, she walked up and put her hand on my shoulder. For a second I felt relief. But then she said, "Monique, I know this is hard, but Brianna probably didn't mean any harm. She's probably just scared and confused. Maybe we should all just calm down and talk about this like adults." I looked around that room, and Trevor's family was already surrounding Brianna, asking if she needed water, if she needed to sit down, treating her like she was the victim in all this. And my family, my friends, they were all looking at me like I was the problem, like I was being unreasonable for being upset that my marriage was destroyed before it even started. The only person who came and stood beside me was my daddy. Raymond Turner didn't say a word. He just took my hand, looked at everyone in that room with disgust, and walked me straight out of my own wedding reception. We left behind 200 guests, thousands of dollars in food and flowers, and every single person I thought loved me. That night, I cried in my childhood bedroom at my daddy's house, still wearing that wedding dress, feeling like my whole world had ended. And in a way, it had. The old Monique died that night. The one who trusted people. The one who believed family meant something. She was gone. The next morning, I called a lawyer. I didn't care what anyone had to say about it. The marriage hadn't been consummated, we were supposed to leave for our honeymoon the next day, so the annulment was straightforward. While Trevor was blowing up my phone with apologies and excuses, I was signing papers to erase him from my life legally. My mother called me dramatic. Candace said I was being unforgiving and that I should at least consider couples therapy. Denise said I was throwing away a good man over one mistake. One mistake. Like betraying me with another woman for 8 months and bringing her to our wedding was just a little oopsie. But I had my daddy, and I had my work. See, I'm a financial consultant. I've always been good with money, with seeing patterns, with helping people build wealth, so I threw myself into it. Every tear I wanted to cry, I turned into another client meeting. Every sleepless night became another hour of building my business. While everyone else was telling me to get over it, I was getting over them. The funny thing about betrayal is that it shows you who people really are. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. My mama kept calling, trying to get me to come to Sunday dinner, to work things out with Trevor. Candace would text me articles about forgiveness and moving on. Denise would send me inspirational quotes about not holding grudges. But none of them ever said, "I'm sorry. We were wrong. You deserved better." So I kept my distance. I worked, I saved, I invested, and I watched from afar as Trevor and Brianna's little love story played out. They got married 6 months after my wedding. Quick courthouse thing, and guess who was there? My mama, my sister, smiling in the photos on social media like they were celebrating something beautiful. That hurt worse than the wedding day, if I'm being honest, because it confirmed what I already knew. They'd chosen sides, and I wasn't on the winning team. But then, slowly, things started falling apart for them. Turns out Brianna was never pregnant. The whole thing was a lie. She'd seen Trevor at some event, found out he came from money, and decided he was her ticket to an easy life. By the time Trevor figured it out, they were already married, and she had access to everything. Brianna started spending like crazy. Designer bags, expensive trips. She opened credit cards in Trevor's name and maxed them out. His business started struggling because, and this is the part that makes me laugh, I was the one with all the business connections. I was the one who introduced him to clients, who helped him network, who used my financial expertise to keep his company running smoothly. Without me, he was just a man with a decent idea and no execution. Meanwhile, I was thriving. 2 years after that disaster of a wedding, I'd built my own consulting firm from the ground up. I had clients all over the state. I'd started a side business helping women rebuild their finances after divorce. I bought my daddy a beautiful house in a quiet neighborhood where he could retire in peace. And me? I was living in a penthouse downtown, driving a car I paid for in cash, and sleeping like a baby every single night. I didn't wish bad things on Trevor or Brianna. I didn't have to. They did it to themselves. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a certain satisfaction when I heard his business was failing. When I found out Brianna left him for some other man with deeper pockets. When the life they built on lies started crumbling. But what really surprised me was what came next. It started with a text from Denise. After 2 years of barely speaking, she sent me a long message about how much she missed me, how she'd made a mistake, how she needed to talk. I didn't respond right away, but then she called, and called again. Finally, I answered. She was crying, told me she'd made some bad investments, trusted the wrong people with her money, and now she was about to lose her apartment. She needed a loan, just $10,000 to get back on her feet. And since I was doing so well, since I was a financial consultant, could I please help her? I let her finish. Then I said very calmly, "No." She got quiet. Then she said, "What do you mean, no?" "Monique, I'm your best friend." And I said, "You stopped being my best friend when you told me my husband's mistress didn't mean any harm." At my wedding reception, "I'm returning the same energy you gave me that day." She started yelling, called me petty, said I was holding on to the past, told me I'd regret this when I needed someone someday. I hung up and blocked her number. I felt nothing. A few weeks later, my sister Candace showed up at my office, didn't make an appointment, just showed up and demanded to see me. My assistant told her I was busy, but Candace insisted it was an emergency, so I let her sit in the waiting room for 3 hours. Then I had security escort her out. She left me a voicemail, crying, talking about how her husband had left her for another woman. Oh, the irony. She had 3 kids, no job skills, and needed someone to co-sign on an apartment lease and help her out financially. She said family is supposed to help family. That blood is thicker than water. I deleted the voicemail without finishing it, because blood might be thicker than water, but it's not thicker than betrayal. Then came my mother. Gloria Turner, the woman who raised me, who taught me right from wrong, who I thought would always have my back. She showed up at my daddy's house one evening when she knew I'd be there for dinner. She brought my daddy along like a shield, thinking I wouldn't go off with him present. She looked older, tired, and when she started talking, I understood why. She'd been giving Trevor and Brianna money, lots of it, taking out loans, draining her savings, all to stay in their good graces, to be part of their lives. And now that they were done, now that Brianna was gone and Trevor was broke, those loans were coming due. She was facing foreclosure on her house. She cried, she apologized, she said she didn't know what she was thinking, that she was wrong, that she needed my help. I looked at my mama, this woman who chose a stranger over me on the most important day of my life, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just nothing. I said, "You made a choice. You looked at me, your daughter, standing there in her wedding dress, humiliated and heartbroken, and you told me not to make a scene. You went to his next wedding and smiled for pictures. You funded their lifestyle while I built mine alone. Those were your choices. Now you get to live with them." She broke down completely. My daddy looked at me with these sad eyes, but he didn't argue. He knew I was right. But the final straw was Trevor himself. He showed up at my office building one afternoon looking like a shadow of the man I'd almost married. His suit was wrinkled. He'd lost weight. He looked defeated. Security called up to ask if I'd see him. Part of me wanted to say no, but another part of me needed to hear what he'd possibly have to say. So I told them to send him up. He sat across from my desk in my corner office with the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and I could see him taking it all in. The success, the power, everything I'd built without him. He apologized, said he'd made the biggest mistake of his life, that Brianna had destroyed him, taken everything, and he realized too late that I was the one who'd made him better. He asked if I could help him save his business, if we could maybe start over as friends, if there was any way I could forgive him. I let him finish. Then I stood up, walked to my door, and opened it. "You brought your mistress to our wedding reception," I said quietly. "You humiliated me in front of everyone I knew. You let your family and mine treat me like I was the problem. You married her 6 months later like I never existed. And now you want my help? You want my forgiveness? Security will see you out." He tried to argue, but I just called security. They removed him, and I went back to work like nothing happened. A month later, my daddy called and asked me to come over, said everyone wanted to talk. Everyone meaning Mama, Candace, and somehow Denise had gotten involved too. I almost said no, but I respect my daddy more than anyone in this world, and he asked me nicely. So I went. We sat in the living room of the house I'd bought him, and the symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. They were in my father's home that I paid for, asking me for grace. My daddy let them speak first. Denise talked about how sorry she was, how she didn't understand what I was going through that day. Candace cried about how she was wrong to suggest I share my husband, how she understood now because she'd been betrayed too. Mama just kept saying she was sorry over and over like the words would fix everything. I listened, I didn't interrupt, and when they were done, I spoke. "Denise, you taught me that friendship has conditions, that when things get hard, you'll take the easier path instead of standing with me. Thank you for that lesson. Candace, you taught me that blood doesn't mean loyalty, that being family doesn't mean you'll protect me when I need it most. I won't forget that. Mama, you taught me that I can't depend on anyone but myself, that even the woman who gave birth to me will choose a stranger over me if it's more convenient. That's a painful lesson, but probably the most valuable one. They all looked at me like I'd slapped them. But I wasn't done. Here's what's going to happen. Mama, I'm not going to let you lose your house, not because I forgive you, but because watching you suffer doesn't bring me peace, and it would hurt, Daddy. I'll pay off your debt, but you're going to pay me back every single penny with interest on a payment plan, business terms, not family terms. My mama nodded, tears streaming down her face. Candace, I'm going to offer you a job at my company. Entry level, administrative work, minimum wage to start, no special treatment because you're my sister. You show up on time, you work hard, you prove yourself like everyone else. If you do well, you'll move up. If you don't, you'll be fired like anyone else. Candace looked shocked, but nodded. Denise, I'm not giving you money, but I'll give you the name of a legitimate credit counselor and some resources for financial assistance. What you do with that information is up to you. Denise started to protest, but I held up my hand. I'm not doing any of this for you, I said clearly. I'm doing this because I'm not going to let your choices destroy my father's peace. He loves you, Mama, and he loves my sister. I won't make him choose. But understand this, we will never be what we were. That version of me died on my wedding day, and all of you killed her. This is the version that rose from those ashes, and she doesn't owe you anything. The room was silent. Then my daddy spoke for the first time. He said, "That's fair." And it was. That was 2 years ago. Mama's almost done paying me back, and we have Sunday dinners sometimes, but there's a distance there that'll never close. Candace works for me, and she's actually good at her job. She's worked her way up to office manager. We're cordial, professional. Sometimes we even laugh together. But we're not sisters the way we used to be. Denise got her life together eventually. I see her posts on social media. She's doing okay. We're not friends. Trevor? I have no idea what happened to him, and I don't care enough to find out. As for me, I'm better than I've ever been. I'm seeing someone new, someone who respects me, who values me, who would never dream of betraying me. My business is expanding to 3 new cities next year. I've been asked to speak at conferences about building wealth and resilience. And every single day I wake up in my beautiful home, look at the life I built with my own 2 hands, and I smile. They say forgiveness is for yourself, not for other people. And I've forgiven them for showing me exactly who they were when I needed them most. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean going back. And it definitely doesn't mean rescuing people from consequences they earned. I saved myself. I built myself back up. And now I'm living my best life while they're still trying to clean up the mess they made. The moral of my story? Never set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, and never ever bet against a woman who's been underestimated. If this story hit home for you, do me a favor. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me, have you ever had to walk away from people you loved because they didn't value you? Share your story. Let's build each other up in the comments. And subscribe, because I've got more stories about standing strong, choosing yourself, and watching karma do her job. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Until next time, remember, you don't owe anyone access to the person you became after they broke you. Keep your head up, your standards higher, and never look back.